Welcome to Lessons That Last, where a researcher and a teacher talk about what it means to make a lasting impact on students' lives. They unpack the stories former students shared about their memorable teachers and discuss how we can all make a greater impact on the people in our lives. Here's Julie and Laura.
Hello, and welcome to the Lessons That Last podcast. I'm Julie Hassan, professor, researcher, and with me is my always charming co-host,
Laura Estes-Swilly, teacher and writer.
I was so excited when we talked about doing this story today because you, like the student I talked about several episodes back, are great at accents.
I am excited about this story too. I love the British and their sort of properness that comes with the British culture. So I like this story a lot.
And at our house, we've been doing a lot of talking about the British culture and the accents from all around the UK because we've been watching Ted Lasso. Mm-hmm. So suddenly we find ourselves very immersed in that culture. And
I think, isn't the whole world immersed in British culture right now because they just got the new king and we watched all of the pomp and circumstance that's involved in that. And that kind of opened our eyes, I think, to some of the cultural norms they have that we don't have.
And plus, Harry and Meghan's documentary.
Right.
Book. There's just so much going on across the pond right now. And they're pretty intriguing anyway.
Yeah. And that's a lot of American mixed with British, right? That whole situation. I'm not completely up to speed on that. I feel like life has enough drama. I don't need to borrow other people's drama. And we'll just let them figure it out. And eventually everybody will be friends again. And everybody will be like standing on the balcony together. And that'll be great.
Yeah. And it's hard to feel too sorry for the royals, no matter what happens.
Right.
You know? I figure if you live in a castle, I'm sure you're still dealing with a lot of stuff. But over here in America...
I don't know. Sometimes I think about, and this is obviously in older royal times, how hard it must have been because so many of your choices were made for you. If you caught the king's eye, you don't have a choice anymore, that kind of thing. So I agree. There are a lot of problems they don't have, but I think there's a set we don't even know about that they have to deal with.
Plus the visibility, probably. Anything that takes away your anonymity probably has to be hard. Even for us as teachers, like when you realize you can't go to the grocery store wearing your house slippers because you know you're going to see some kid or parents or your boss, someone.
There definitely in our town is a grocery store I stopped going to after I had my second or third parent conference in the aisles. I was like, I'm not going back there. I can't do it. I can't keep doing it.
You got a little taste of it.
Yeah. And I will say, I don't know if this is meaningful to anyone, but my great grandmother's maiden name, Buckingham.
Wow. Mm-hmm. You're practically royal.
I feel like there's a tiara missing. It should be right here on my head.
So this particular story is about a teacher, as people probably have picked up on from across the pond, who was very proper and disciplined and all of the kinds of things we think about, I think, when we think about the British people.
Yes.
So I'm wondering, since we're going to talk a bit about her disciplined nature, do you have any routines or daily disciplines that you stick to?
So I'm not the most disciplined person. I am usually doing multiple things at once or thinking about 20 things at one time. And I think that what I have cultivated as a discipline is, this sounds so superficial, it's skincare. It's skincare.
No, that's such an important routine.
We had a talk a couple weeks ago about aging, right? And aging gracefully. And skincare is something that I won't sacrifice. So no matter how tired I am or how long the day has been, I am going to do my whole routine at night. I am going to do my whole routine in the morning. And so that is probably my biggest life discipline. But I will say as well, when you and I were working on Lessons That Last, writing the book, which was started right around this time last year, maybe a little bit earlier, but heated up a lot over summer. It gave a shape to my summer days that I've never really had. I need bells, right? I need bells to ring to tell me to move on to something new. Oh, is it time to eat? I should go to the bathroom now. I need the bells. And so summer, I can get a little unruly, and our writing gave me a discipline that shaped my days. It ended, so I don't know what's going to happen this summer. But it definitely provided a lot of structure for me. And I realized that was self-imposed. I made the structure, but I had a real reason to make the structure for myself.
Yes, I can see that. And this is the first summer for me that I haven't taught or I haven't worked. And I think I became an assistant principal in 2009, left my second grade role and became an AP, and pretty much have worked summers or moved to higher ed and taught classes, the same probably number of classes that I teach in fall and spring. So this summer for me, although it's still busy, doesn't have teaching in it or administrative responsibilities to the degree I typically have. And I am feeling a little bit of unease about that. I am not a good person with unstructured, like I never have unstructured time, you know?
It makes you feel adrift.
Yes, I'm not a good rester. So we'll see how, there's a lot going on still, but we'll see how this summer plays out here. Now,
but you are very good at disciplining yourself and providing your own structure. So I would imagine pretty quickly that's going to arise for you, right? You're going to create your own schedule, create the shape of your days to come.
Mm-hmm. In fact, I have my schedule template right here on my desk. And so I will still be doing that because otherwise I won't get done what I need to get done. But I'm a bed maker. So now I get up before Brian most of the time. So sometimes I have to be up and I'll drink my tea and I'll do my writing and I'll do some things and then have to go back and make the bed when he gets out of the bed. Or a lot of times he'll do it because he knows like the bed has to be made. And I'm not sure where that comes from because I'm not always the most organized, disciplined person, but my dad was, and my mom was, and so you just made the bed. And is it Admiral McRaven who wrote the book about making your bed? And he said something about if you want to change your life, just start by making your bed.
Right, because you've made already a conscious decision for order.
And whatever else happens, you've accomplished something.
Right. And when you were talking about making your bed, I was thinking about your childhood bedroom. And every time I came into that room, your bed was made. And I would imagine that you never came into my room and my bed was made. Unless there was a party, you know how you have to clean your room because there's a party. Other than that, I would imagine you never saw my bed made.
Now, in your defense, your bed was usually full of Cabbage Patch dolls.
I had a lot going on. There was so much going on.
I mean, you can't kick them out just to
No.
make the bed.
Mm-mm.
So
You have all the pillows and the stuffed animals. Yeah. And the
Right.
clothes. Also the clothes.
oh yeah, because you'd have to move the clothes to make the bed.
And that makes no sense because you're just going to put them right back where you got them. So
Oh, but there's such value in, and I wish I had more of it, in being sort of disciplined in a way that when you mind all the small things, the big things take care of themselves.
yes.
So even in our writing, like, we had a schedule and we knew by this point we have to have this many stories done. And by going story by story, page by page, that book got done. So
Right.
as we prepared for this talk today, I kept thinking about when I get really busy, the balls that I drop and how that can end me up in a big old mess. So things like not getting the laundry done, and then all of a sudden you're like, okay,
Right.
you need some clothes to wear, or not tracking the things in your checkbook, or whatever it is when you get really busy and scattered.
Mhm.
And instead of like doing the small things every day, all of a sudden you're having to clean up a mess. Right.
Then it's a crisis. And I think that I have learned some of those lessons. Definitely, I'm not an organized person, and I try and I can get organized. I just can't stay organized. And I'm not sure. Sometimes I look at my desk and I say to myself, oh my gosh, this is what my brain looks like. My brain feels like this desk looks. And I don't know that I can order that. I don't know that I can like get that into shape. But the some of the small things like what you mentioned, I just saw this play out in my house because I was supposed to have surgery on my foot and ankle this summer where I would not be ambulatory for 10 weeks. So my husband decided he was going to learn how to do our laundry. Now he knows how to do laundry, but it's some learning curve to learn how to do our laundry. And so constantly there would be clothes not getting washed or stuff in the dryer or, hey, does anything need to be changed? And he couldn't keep track of it. And I realized I do keep track of that because I have been caught exactly where you're talking about, where there's nothing to wear and it's 6 a.m. and I have to be in school in an hour and a half. And what am I supposed to do now? So we learned the hard way.
Yeah, I think so. Now, I am married to a very diligent, disciplined, careful laundry doer. He does his because I'm not allowed to fold his laundry.
Okay.
Because I don't do it exactly right. Which means like my mother does it because my mom taught him how to fold laundry. My mom, the former home ec teacher. And apparently she didn't teach me because I do not fold the laundry right.
I'm going to say that's willful, Julie. That's willful.
Nor do I load the dishwasher correctly.
Oh, that's a coincidence.
That has to be redone as well when I do it.
I see your game, Hassan.
So I am married to a very disciplined, very organized person to the point of like it will make you a little crazy.
Yeah.
But that's good. He's an accountant. So you wouldn't want an accountant who's disorganized.
You wouldn't want an accountant whose desk looks like mine because you would be positive you were losing money, right? But when you see my desk, you could also be positive you're finding creativity.
Yes.
It's just a different mindset.
Different kind of genius, isn't it?
Right. But I was thinking about the idea of some of the academic things that I hold dear, that are hard and fast, and rules we don't bend. And I think as creative as you are, or as scattered or disorganized, however you want to view that, as educators, I think we all have some of those things that we don't let drop.
Yes. I mean, you certainly would never lose a student's paper or fail to put a grade in.
Right.
That's funny. I was thinking about Kaylin, my daughter, who was a beginning teacher just a few years ago, and not always the most organized, neat person. Let me tell you, that was an organized, structured third grade classroom. Like everything was in its place in that classroom, which is funny, but that was a survival mechanism.
I was going to say,
for
you
her.
can't do a third grade classroom where everything isn't in its place, right? I mean, it's third grade. Not only are third graders hard to corral, but also in Florida, third grade is a do or die year.
Mhm.
And so she was looking at preservation, like self-preservation. If I'm not organized, this isn't going to happen. I can see that very clearly.
But also teaching her students where things belong and sort of putting structures in place and teaching those procedures and those structures. I remember teaching kindergarten, and when they came in the door, they had a checklist. You take these things out of your backpack. Your backpack goes here. You go get your clipboard. You sit here, and they would just go through their little checklist. But when you're right, when you have that many small people, you just have to be that way.
And so I'm thinking about my students who are seniors. Exclusively, I teach seniors now. And when they ask me, well, how do you want me to set up my notebook? I say, what works best for you? I don't care how you set up your notebook. I care that you set up your notebook. At this point, as a student, you should know what is right for you and what doesn't work for you. And so what sense is there in me imposing something on you? What a difference.
Wow. That's great though. And how empowering. And also,
that's how I mean it to be empowering. Of course, some of my students are like me and they drop the ball because they're not organized. But what a difference between like where you started them and where I'm trying to do that gradual release because the world does not tell you how to organize your notebook. Like let's pick away and do what works for you kind of thing. It's really interesting to see the beginning and the end.
That is interesting. And we do have to find systems that work for us as people. What works for my Brian is very different than what works for me because we're just, our brains work so differently.
Right.
Yeah, we both get things done, and so do you. So you have to figure out what works for you. But also, I'm trying to make sure that I set myself up in a way that I don't waste unnecessary energy and mental space, like looking for things or having to clean up a mess. I'm starting, I think, to realize if I can take care of the small things every day, then that will alleviate some mental space.
Yeah. And I think that's because you're so busy. You're working on so many things at the same time and all of equal importance to you, right? If you've given it your brain space, then it's high on the list. And so that's a function of being busy. You have to do if you take care of the pennies, the pounds take care of themselves.
Which is so British.
I know. So I think that's partly because you're so busy and engaged in so many important things.
Well, and I wish I had had Miss Francis. Although I had Mr. Marsh for high school biology, and he was fabulous, but he was definitely not anything like Sophia's memory of Mrs. Francis.
Yeah, I'm trying to think if I had a teacher like her. I don't know. I'm not sure.
I had a college professor like her, who was my dissertation chair, Valerie Jancic, who had very high expectations.
Yes.
And especially about research and writing. And would remind you about those standards, but also as a woman in the field would remind you to make sure that your voice is heard and that you carry yourself in a certain way, because she was, a generation ahead of me and they had worked so hard
Right.
to get any kind of position or respect or opportunity. Yeah.
Right.
Which is sort of like Mrs. Francis. So with that, will you share Sophia's memory of her high school biology teacher with us?
Mrs. Francis was my high school biology teacher, and I was fascinated by her. She was born and raised in London, and she kept a picture of Queen Elizabeth on her desk. Her accent, her posture, and everything about Mrs. Francis seemed regal. I remember her directive when I walked into her classroom each day. Chin up and shoulders back, Sophia. Mrs. Francis was also particular about proper speech and neat handwriting. Her high expectations came across as caring. She wanted me to succeed and believed I could. In college, I majored in biology and eventually went on to medical school. I don't know that I would have had the confidence to pursue that dream without Mrs. Francis. Because she believed in me, I learned to believe in myself. Even now, when I find myself slumping, I think of her and adjust my posture.
I love when you do the voices in this story.
Oh, thank you.
Mrs. Francis.
I love
Picture
this science. She's a scientist, Sophia, right? She's a doctor and a scientist, and she speaks in such beautiful metaphor. Even now, when I find myself slumping, I think of her and adjust my posture. That's not just about physical posture, right? That's like emotional slumping or career slumping. She has to make an adjustment. I love that.
I know, and I thought about the kind of British saying of, when you put your chin down, your crown will slip.
Yes, yes.
It's so lovely, and you're right. There's such a deep meaning to chin up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because and actually posture is something that I'm constantly reminding myself about. I don't want to be one of those ladies who slumps. And when I was younger, I mean, now as adults, we're all whatever height we are. But when I was younger, I was taller, right? And so if I'm standing with my friends, I had to do that little sort of slump thing to get down so I look like everybody else. And so I'm constantly reminding myself. And the truth is, when you adjust your posture, you adjust your attitude. You adjust your mindset. It's a physical manifestation of something that's happening in your spirit when you adjust your posture.
That is true. We were watching UCLA basketball this past basketball season because if our TV is on, it's on one of the ESPNs, and it was, I'm going to try to remember, Moses Brown is the center. And they were down by 2 points. It was near the end of the game. He made a pass that didn't go where he intended it to go, messed up the pass. The other team got possession of the ball. When they transitioned back to defense, his chin was down. And I want to say it was Jalen Hands, who's the point guard, who walked by him and pushed his chin.
Yes, I saw that. Of course, I know none of their names. I'm so impressed with you that you know their names, but I saw that on social media or on one of the ESPNs playing in my house. That just adjustment.
Just pushed his chin up. And I loved it because, Jalen is a point guard and Moses is a center. So Jalen had to reach up to push his friend's chin up. And I thought, what a powerful thing to say. Yes. Okay, we're not carrying this mistake now down the court with us. Chin up, let's go.
Let's go.
I loved that moment. I thought that was what a beautiful moment that was captured between those two teammates.
And I think the same is true for coming into Mrs. Francis's room. Chin up, like we're going to face this, which was biology, which I'm sure she loved. And she saw, I am imagining, a lot of potential in her student, Sophia. And so she wanted her to face it like with a readiness, treating it as important as it was, not slumping into her seat and just being there. right?
Yes. With dignity and presence.
Yes, and an active participant. Because when your body is actively participating, you are actively participating.
I love that. And I love that for a young woman, it was, science is even still,
Yes.
there's such a difference in opportunities in the genders that she clearly was saying to this young woman, you're going to have to keep your chin up and persevere and have presence and make sure that your presence is known in these spaces.
Absolutely. I agree. What a beautiful educator. She was teaching a lot more than biology.
She was. And Queen Elizabeth on her desk.
I love that.
Oh.
I love that. And I could see having Queen Elizabeth on my desk. I don't know about King Charles. I just gotta be honest.
Yeah.
So my jury's out on him.
We'll see what happens there.
Right. But Queen Elizabeth was such a strong, powerful woman, but also graceful and kind in her public life. I don't know about her private life. What a great reminder for Mrs. Francis to keep her chin up and to stand up tall, sitting on her desk, reminding her every day.
And Elizabeth came into that title as a very young woman, right? During a really difficult time.
Yes.
And had to keep her chin up and persevere and make her presence known.
Yes.
So I can see why maybe Mrs. Francis had some admiration and respect and left that little reminder on her desk.
Yeah. You gotta wonder if Sophia has a little picture of Queen Elizabeth somewhere.
Oh.
You should have asked her.
I should have asked her that. Hindsight.
Well, Sophia, if you're listening, we want to know.
We want to know, do you have any kind of pictures of royalty or British
Yes,
tradition?
a little touchstone picture to remind yourself.
Yes, or maybe she just drinks a cup of tea during her break. I don't know. It's funny the things we carry from the teachers we remember, isn't it?
It is.
So what from this story, Laura, will you carry now into the week ahead?
So right now, my weeks are a little different. Remember, my seniors are gone, and it's more administrative type. Let's do book inventory or maybe cover a class here and there. So I'm not really working with my students this week or into next week, but I think I'm going to find a touchstone to remind me to chin up. I think that I need a reminder now and then. Teaching is hard, right? Being part of a school community and a school staff is a heavy lift. It's a lot of work. And there are times for all of us where we don't feel strong, where we don't feel maybe supported, where we don't feel heard. And we need a touchstone, I think, to remind us of who we are, to straighten our crowns, so to speak. And so I need to find a touchstone. I'm not sure what it's going to be yet, but there'll be one.
Hoping you start wearing a tiara. I would like that.
I would really like that too. I'll have to. Here's the problem. I'm just going to be honest with you in regard to crowns and tiaras. They are meant for smaller heads than mine. They squeeze my head so bad.
No.
Yeah.
Heavy is the head that wears the crown.
Puffy is the head that wears the crown. I call it my big brain. It's my big giant brain.
I think so. And maybe you're picking the wrong crown. Maybe a dainty little tiara is not what you need. You need I
need a big one.
Yeah, like a king's crown.
Oh, maybe. I don't know what it'll be. What are you going to take, Julie, for the week?
I am going to, I think like you, it's easy right now as educators to feel defeated and disrespected and a bit beat up.
Yeah.
I think same. Chin up, persevere, remember your dignity, remember your worth, right? Which is what Mrs. Francis was trying to say. So I think I will carry that into this week ahead. A new episode of Ted Lasso coming up as we record this. There are only a couple left. So, yes, I think I will think about Mrs. Francis as those last 2 episodes roll out, because there's a lot of deep, sweet lessons in there as well.
Right.
Well, thank you everybody for joining us. Thank you for keeping your chins up even during these difficult days. We appreciate you. We certainly would place a crown upon all of your heads if we could. So let this be a virtual coronation of you, my kings and queens of teaching. Have a great week, everybody.
Bye. Thank you so much for joining us. We hope you will subscribe to the Lessons That Last podcast wherever you listen. Give us a rating too, which will help other listeners find us. And don't forget to visit chalkandchances.com for more stories. You can also find more information on Julie's research in books. While you're there, take the quiz to find out what kind of memorable teacher you are. I took it and was surprised by what I found. I think you'll find good food for thought. Let us know about your quiz results. We hope you will meet us here each week and bring a friend to share the conversation.